And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Poojita.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our today's session on Introduction to Coding Environments for Python. So this is the session 1 of like 3 sessions. This is a team members. So I'm Poojita. You met Jessica already, and the third member is Neon. So I'll be the instructor for today's session. So hi again, I am Poojita. I'm a research intern at Georgia Tech, and I'm a track lead at Women Who Code Python. You can connect with me on my Twitter, handle is Declan. Okay, so I guess you're all excited about today's session. Let's dive right into it. So before talking about a few coding environments, which we are going to discuss and in the session, let's talk about few of the important requirements for a good Python coding environment. So few of the requirements include that the Python coding environment should be able to save and retrieve the code files. So that's one of the requirements. So an IDE or an editor, whatever you are using, that should let you save your work and revoke everything of your code for many number of times, as much as you want. The second requirement could be like having a debugger in your IDE. So troubleshoot your errands and highlight the lines which go wrong is really a helping hand in one of the other requirement could be syntax highlighting. So it's very boring and it's very confusing as well to read something just black written on a white page of sheet, right? So there should be some syntax highlightings to identify keywords, variables, and symbols, so to make your code more readable and understandable. One of the other requirement could be that having an automatic code formatting. So we know that in Python indentation is so much important. So and also various different types of formatting. So these should be if they are done automatically by our IDE, I think that's a really that could be really helpful. So after discussing a few requirements, now we should discuss what are IDEs and what are code or text editors. So let's start with what are IDEs. So IDE stands for an integrated development environment. So this could be for any programming language. Usually IDEs support multiple programming languages, but let's stick to Python for now. So IDE is a software environment that consolidates basic developer tools such as text editors, interpreters, compilers, and debuggers, so required to build and test the software. IDE consolidates different aspects of the development toolchain into a single graphical user interface. So you don't have to look for different tools at separate places, but you will have everything in one GUI. An IDE also allows the team of developers to work on different modules on the same project in an organized manner. So it's very organized, because if you have more than one coding files or something like that, or in a hierarchy, you are working with a project, then IDEs are the best place to your code to be. So few of the popular IDEs which we use for Python are VS Code, PyCharm, Eclipse, Xcode, which is Xcode is not is for like Apple based products, like for Mac. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So I hope that you have a basic knowledge about what IDEs are. Now let's jump to code or text editors. So a text editor is simply a computer program and a tool used for text editing, or could be for the code editing. So code editors are obviously the simpler ones. They are easy to begin with, meaning you can start using a text or a code editor in no time. So if you're a beginner and just started to learn any language, or let's say Python, then these text editors or code editors are the simplest ones to use. This is not the case when you start using an IDE, because IDE will have different features and it could be a little overwhelming for a beginner. But once you are like you know all the beginner stuff and you are used to it, used to coding, then using an IDE will be the best option, because then there you will get a lot of features which the simple text editors or code editors won't provide you with. Few of the popular examples of text editors for Python are Vim, Sublime Text, Atom, Brackets, etc. Okay, let's talk about few differences, differences between IDEs and text editors. Let's start with IDE. As I told you earlier, that IDE is a full-fledged software environment that consolidates all the basic developer tools required to build and test the software. While on the other hand, text editor is just a simple tool where you will write your code and it will just compile it or interpret it and provide you with an output. It consolidates different aspects of the computer program into a single GUI. I'm sorry, so in the text editor, basically when you write the code or something, you need some external place where you can run it. Like if I'm using a text editor and I'll write a code, then maybe I'll use my terminal to, like run the code and see the output. In IDE, it consolidates different aspects into a single GUI. And in text editor, it is like you take some input, change it and produce some output. So that won't include a debugger or other parts of the toolchain. IDE, they require more disk space and more memory and a faster processor. So probably you will need a more robust computer. So you have a basic computer or an old computer which does not have that much disk space or memory or faster processing. So then you can use a text editor which requires a fewer hardware resources to run, meaning less memory and processing. So in today's session, so we have divided all of our 3 sessions where we will discuss some different types of IDEs or code editors. So in this session, we will be concentrating on the browser-based text editors. So the 2 popular ones is using Jupyter Notebook and Collab Notebook. So Collab is a Google's product. So we'll be discussing, basic how their basic interface looks like, what are the basic features, like how you can create your first notebook in these 2 different editors. And in later sessions, we are going to discuss, like in the next session, we'll be discussing text editors. So few of the ones I mentioned earlier. So the few of the popular ones, we're going to discuss their interface and the basic ways you can, start using them. And in the 3rd session, we are going to discuss about the IDEs. So let's start with today's agenda, which is learning to use the Jupyter Notebook. So a little introduction about what is Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter Notebook is neither a simple text editor nor a full-featured IDE. It is an interactive computing environment that mixes code, results of running the code in a graphical form and documentation in a single document. So just, just for your knowledge that what is interactive computing, sorry. So interactive computing is a fancy term for programming, where we issue commands to running program and get the results right away. So after running each line of code which you have written, you'll get its result right away. We'll just see how. So Jupyter Notebooks provide a quick and streamlined way of problem solvers to prototype code and quickly share the code. So sharing and prototyping the code is really easy in this kind of computing. So the major use case where the Jupyter Notebooks are used like extensively is in machine learning and data science projects. So where you need, like, let's say you have implemented a function to produce some interactive graph or something like that, or used some machine learning algorithm to check its parameters. So those kind of things where you just want like the result of some part of code like immediately, you'll use these kind of editors like Jupyter Notebook or Collab. So it's a single document. You can run your code. It will display the output. You can also add any explanation to your methodology or formulas or charts and make your work more transparent, understandable, repeatable, and shareable. So these are the few resources how you can install a Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter notebooks are a part of the open source project Jupyter. So they are completely free to use. So you can download them. You can download them in two ways. Either you can, download it as part of the Anaconda data science toolkit. So, but if you don't want to, invest that much disk space for installing the whole Anaconda, then you can simply go to your terminal or command prompt, and from there you can just, install the just the Jupyter notebook. So here, so the slides would be shared with you, and here I've mentioned few installing guides for all the Windows, Linux, and for Mac, I have written this command. So this is like pip3 install Jupyter. Once you'll use this command in your terminal, so the Jupyter would be installed. Now, after you have installed the Jupyter, project, and Jupyter notebook is set, you can start using Jupyter Notebook by entering this command, Jupyter Notebook. So once you'll do that, your Jupyter Notebook will get open. Now, if you have used it before or when you'll use it, you'll see that the Jupyter Notebook opens in your browser. So there's no app for that. It will open in your browser. So you may notice that the URL for the dashboard is something like this. So it's a local host URL. So just FYI, that local host is not a website. It will open in your browser, but it's not online. So it indicates that the content is being served from your local machine, your own computer. So it will use all the resources from your own computer. Now, the important point is that it opens in the browser, but it is again, I'm saying it again, that it is hosted and run on your local machine. So it will look confusing, but don't get confused. Okay, so let's go to the Jupyter notebook. Okay, so see, so I have opened this Jupyter notebook using my terminal, the command for which I have also mentioned earlier. Now you can see this is the Jupyter dashboard. You can see that it is hosted on localhost. That means any file which I'll create here or which I'll delete from here, it is connected to my own computer. So it will create it or delete it from my own disk. Okay, so I will go to this, and there's a folder which I have created specially for today. So this is the Women Who Code Python folder. So here I have created a file, but let's see how to create a new file from here. Just a second. Okay. Okay, so this is the dashboard. You have that now. We'll see. Okay. You can see here there's a new you can create a new notebook from here. You can choose Python 3. The option is Python 3, and this is the new file which you have created. So if you go back in the dashboard, this is a new file, right? If you go back in the dashboard, you can see here that this is the file I created earlier, this Markdown example file, which we'll use in a bit. And this is the file I created just right now. So untitled, I'll rename it. But you can see here that, you can distinguish your other files from your Jupyter files. Like you have this notebook icon here in the front. So this notebook icon denotes that it's a Jupyter notebook. You can see that this is not running. This Markdown example is not running. That's why it is gray in color. And this untitled is running in my next tab. So that's why it is green in color. So all the running ones will have green icons. So you can identify easily. Okay, let's go to our notebook again. Okay, so here let's make ourselves comfortable with the interface, and let's see what are basic things you can do. First of all, let us rename it to something. So we can rename it as test. Okay, so this green thing, which is like, this is called a cell. So here you'll write your code. So let's say I write print hello world. Okay, so it has printed hello world. Now there are different types of cells. If you go here in cell, sorry, if you go here, can start from here first. If you go here, this is right now a code cell. So by default, whenever you create a new cell, that is a code cell. But you have different options, like you have Markdown, you have raw cell, and you have heading cell. So if I create it as Markdown, then whatever I'll write here, like let's say I write something, test file, and when I use it, this is a Markdown. So this is not getting created as a code, which was like this. So this is a Markdown. Now, if I write it as raw, when it's the raw cell, then these cells are not evaluated when they are run. So they are just kept as it is. So there is, you can write any kind of output you want, to have in your documentation. So you can use it for that type of things. And the last is heading. So it's just to create a heading. Now let's see how to run these types of cells. So there can be different ways in which you can run. Now you can run it when I have put this here, you can run it like this with this run, key here, or you can use it with your keyboard by pressing Shift Enter. So with Enter, you'll just enter the next line, but with Shift Enter, you'll run the cell. Now, if something is running, if some big code is written and it's running and you want to like interrupt it in between, then you can also use this pause button here to interrupt the code. Now, if you want to add a cell, then you can add it by this plus icon. Also, if you want to edit the cell, you can cut these cells, you can copy the cells, you can go in this edit button here, and you can just cut, copy, delete cells, split cells. So there are multiple options. You just need to, as a beginner, you just need to see what are the minimum useful instructions so that you'll not get confused, and later on you can try exploring different other options. Okay, there are a few options for here, this kernel menu item. So here you can see that you can interrupt your kernel, you can restart it, and you can restart and clear. So there are various options. You can also just completely shut down the kernel. But you need to be sure that if you do any of these, if you choose any of these options for the kernel, then restarting or shutting down kernels will affect your variables. So just be careful. Also, one interesting and useful thing here in this Jupyter is that if you go to this help menu item, you will see that you get all few of the important libraries of Python packages which are used. You get all the documentation just very handy. So if you click here, you will get to the new window and you'll get the documentation of, let's say, Python, IPython, NumPy. So these are very handy as a beginner. And you'll also get few keyboard shortcuts. So you can kind of see which ones you use the most and find the shortcuts for the same. Also, one important thing that you need not take the pain to like save your notebook every time you make an edit. So Jupyter notebooks are saved as you go. So you need not worry about that. Also, you can download the notebook. So if you go in file, you can say download as. So there are various methods in the way you can download. Like you can download it as a html file, as latex file, as markdown, so on. By default, it is downloaded as a notebook. So you can see here, this is the by default the way it is downloaded as an extension .ipynb. So this is the file which in which the contents of the file are stored in form of JSON. So you can download from there. Okay, so you can try and practice working with it, at your own pace. Let's see, let's go back to our dashboard. And here I have created this markdown file for you. So here, as you're familiar with that, there are different syntax for writing a good markdown file or markdown. If you're writing anything like to create a good documentation, you are always supposed to, create some markdown cells as well in between your code so that it's more readable to your team member or any other, if you're even presenting your code. So if I see this, so this is the way I have written, like if I use one hash and then there is some gap, then this creates a heading, level 1 heading. And like if you add 2 hashtags, then it will create a level 2 heading. So I think there are 6 levels of headings which you can create like this by increasing the number of hash. Then you can emphasize some of your text and even make it italics by using these syntax like 2 asterisks or the underscores. And then you can use asterisks to create as a list, or just simply write 1 and 2 to create it as a numeric list. Then you can have like using the backticks, 2 backticks, you can create like inline code, and with triple backticks, you can create a code block. Also with an indentation, you can make it look like a code block. Then there are few ways you can add links, hyperlinks, as well as the way you can add images. So this is the way to do that. So if I run this is how your markdown cell would look like this. This is shown as level 1 heading, and similarly these are as bulleted list and numeric list. This is a hyperlink. This is showing as a inline coding code, and as these as code blocks. And finally, this just a random image I took from Google. So an image, the way you can insert images to create it, like make it look more nice to see and more understandable at times. Okay. So let's get back to our slides. So I hope this like a beginner walkthrough would have been helpful for you to get started with Jupyter Notebook. Let's talk about the second type of web based IDE. The second is the Collab or collaboratory. So this is a web IDE for Python from Google Research. Now, more technically, Collab is hosted on Jupyter Notebook itself. So many of the things would be very similar if you have used Jupyter or will use Jupyter one. So after that, using Collab is very easy. In Jupyter, we'll go over in detail about what are the differences between Jupyter and Collab. But let's just see a little walkthrough like we saw of Jupyter of Collab as well. So Collab allows anybody to write and execute arbitrary Python code through the browser, and is especially well suited for, again, machine learning, data analysis, and education purposes. So if you want to quickly test and try some piece of code, or want to access it anytime, anywhere, like very easily you can use Collab. And also it is very much used for machine learning and data analysis projects. I would request Jessica to post the link for the Collab in the chat so that we can all follow, so that everybody could follow along. Okay, so I hope you have all opened the Collab link, which is being shared in the chat. So what you need for Collab is just a Google account. Then you can create any Collab notebooks which will be associated with your Google account with which you have logged in. So if you want to like follow along and try and test all of these code snippets, then you can just create a copy, save a copy in Drive, go to File, save a copy in Drive like this here. Then you will have your own personal copy in your Drive. So there you can, like follow along or whatever, do whatever you would like, create some notes or something. Okay, so I hope everybody is set. Just give me a thumbs up if everybody is set with this opened up the Collab link. Yeah, Jacqueline, I saw that you raised your hand. So we'll be taking the questions at the end. So yeah, we'll just finish the content first because it's a little longer, and then we can take the questions. Thank you so much for everyone who have given me a thumbs up. And okay, so let's start, having some fun with our Collab notebook. So let's start with something fun, okay? So first of all, let's change the display mode, from light to dark. So that's, I guess, nowadays the first thing you do whenever you use a different, anything different, any new social media or anything, like we just change this, mode to dark mode. It's useful. So let's go to tools here, go to settings. Here you will have a theme. So here in the theme, you can select light, dark, or adaptive, which will change upon the time zone you are in, like with the time. Let me say it like I want dark, and just save it. So voila, you have your dark mode on. Another interesting thing of Collab, which I really like, is like for all the cats and dogs lover, like we have Stephanie who has 2 cats, so we're 2 pretty cats. So let's say that I want my coding experience to be a little joyful, and I want some cats and dogs roaming around me in my code. Okay, so for that you need to go to tools, go to settings, go to this miscellaneous, and this is like there are 2 modes. For dogs we have a corgi mode, and for cats we have a kitty mode. So I like both cats and dogs. Let's just say that I want both of them, and once I've saved it, you can see really cute dogs and cats just moving at the top of my screen. So I'm sure it will make it a little fun to code next time. Okay, so after talking about little fun things, let's get serious. Okay, let's talk about how to use this interface. So same like Jupyter, we have cells. So you can see here, these are the text cells where I have written my notes. This is the code cell where like you can see this one, this is the code cell. These are the text cells. So similarly to the types of cells we have in the Jupyter, we have just 2 types of cells. One is the the text cell and the code cell. So if you between the 2 cells, if you just hover your mouse, you will see you can add a code cell or a text cell here. So if I add a code cell, and I can also add a text cell and just write my text here. I can delete it from this bin icon here. Okay. So now let's talk about code cells, and let's talk about ones, see, you can see here that this is this is asking us to connect, right? So let's connect our kernel here. It's allocating some resources for us, and now it's connecting. So once it is said connected, okay, then we will be able to run our code. Initializing here, it will take a little time. And now it's said that it's connected, right? So there's some resources which is allocated to us, like the RAM and this, and now it is saying that it's done. Okay. So now you see that this is a code cell, right? And we have it connected. So now we can run it. Let's say A is 10, and I'm writing A. Okay. Or just warning that it is not authored by Google. So this. Okay. So we are getting the output here. So we can play it using this play sign. We can use the same keyboard shortcut, which is Shift Enter. And using Shift Enter, we can also run this. Also, we so for again for people in using Windows, you can use Command or Control plus Enter to run the cell in place. When you use Shift Enter, you will after executing this, you'll get the focus to the next cell. So like this cell is highlighted now, this text cells. But if you just want to don't want the focus to shift, then you can use Command or Control Enter. When I'm using the Command Enter, because I'm using a map, so here the focus won't shift. Also, you can use Alt plus Enter. So these are various ways you can like run this. Also, you can go to this runtime here, and here you will find like if you want the whole document to run, so run all cells or run before some the one you have like focused right now. So run all the cells before that. You can select the cells and then just run those selected cells. So there are various options here. You can explore them once you get familiar with the basic ones. Let's move on. Let's see what the text cells are. So again, like I show you a little guide about Markdown for Jupyter. I have mentioned some resources here. So there's like a whole Markdown guide which you can use and get familiar with to make your code more readable. How you can edit is like, now I've just double clicked and you can edit it from here. I can write anything. So like this is a test line, let's say, and again I'll enter. So this is like written here. So you can also add like math, etc., like math to text cells using latex to be again rendered by MathJack. So so this is another resource. By placing like dollars, let's say like you place dollars here, right? So this will be converted into math. So there are various things you can test it out. Okay, another point which I feel is important is how to add cells and move cells. So we just saw how we can add hover between the two cells. If you hover it, you'll see two options. You'll have a plus code, so that means add a code block or add a text block. So these are two ways you can add like a code or a text block. Also, these are in the toolbars above this. You can see here this code and plus text also. These are always available here as well. Now, if you want to move this, let's say I have to move the 7th point above the 6th point. So I have to move this whole block. This is a text block above. So I'll use these up and down keys. So like using the up, the 7th point came above the 6th one. If I again move it down, it can move down. So just cell up and cell down. Apart from how to move the code or move the cells, we can also, select the cells. So let's say I have to select this one. So there are few, like you can select the consecutive cells by dragging and dropping it like this, like, I'm sorry. So this way, the code is selected. So if I just use it like this, so I have to click outside the cells and then like drag it in the cells. So this is how I'm selecting the consecutive ones. And now if I say up and down, everything will go up, and all of these will can move. You can move them around. Okay. Non-adjacent cells, if you want to select concurrently by clicking one and holding down Control. If I hold down Control and then select this one, sorry. So for Mac users, you can use Command, and for the Windows one, we can use Control. So this is how I have used. I've selected the non-adjacent cells. And to select all the intermediate cells, you can use Shift instead of Command or Control. So these were some points about adding or moving cells. Okay. So while coding, I think there is one another thing that, you know, exploring the how to so Collab will automatically complete things for you. It will provide you suggestions, okay, to and exploring code. Let's see. Collab provides automatic completions to explore attributes of Python objects, and you can quickly view the documentation as well. So let me run this import. Let me import NumPy as NP. So now here in the next line, if I want to use various functions of NumPy, which I've imported as NP. So if I write like period, like press period, I will automatically get suggestions, whatever is possible, like different functions in this case. Okay. So also, like, you know, this was the first time you pressed period, right? Once the list is unavailable, now you still want to again you want the list to open, you can press Control space. Control space, and again the list will load. So these are few important shortcuts. Now, so this was similarly you can have like you can also have the documentation. If you hover over NP NumPy, you should see a documentation. Let's see what's loading. Okay, it's saying module and file. Let me see. Yeah, here. So once you have imported it, wherever you'll use it, you can see a small, you know, documentation, just a very handy tool here. You can see it like everything is there, the basic ones. You can also open the full documentation by using open in tab or view resource. And so both of the options are available. Similarly, with anything, when you have to write some parameter of a function or something like that, still you'll get some suggestions once you write it. Like if I write a pair of parentheses here, you'll get suggestions like whatever parameters it support and what would the values be, what its data types are, and default values, etc. All the parameters. These kind of suggestions it provides. So makes it easier, right? Again, some shortcut for how to open it again. Also, while you are using Collab, you know, you're coding, it also gives a very convenient way of exception formatting. So because like, see this here, it should throw a 0 division error, right? So it is really nicely formatted, the exception, that you exactly see where the error is and what the error is. And also you'll get this search Stack Overflow button. So whatever the error is, you have a quick access to, you can just click it and you'll be in the new tab, you will get the Stack Overflow discussion about if that how to solve that error and all the useful resource. This is just now the next point is just an example of, because while we are working with data science or machine learning projects, we always tend to use various like graphs or you know, things like that. So Collab provides a very rich and interactive output. So this is like this, you can create beautiful graphs and charts. Some of the other useful things is integration with Drive. So since, as I told you earlier, that this Collab notebook is linked to your Drive. So you might have used Google Slides or Google Docs, etc. So similarly to those kind of services which Google provides, Collab is just another one. So it is fully integrated with your Drive. So whatever you save here will, like, if you choose to save it like in Drive, it will directly save in the Drive. So it is integrated with your Google Drive. It allows you to share, comment, and collaborate on the same document with multiple people. So very good if you are sharing your code, you're two people or more than one person, like working on the same code document. So you have this share button over here. Let us click it. So like I have two email addresses I just shared with myself, right? So this is how you'll see the people who you have shared the document with. You can have a link as well, produce a link over here. And you can, like I showed you, that you can create your own copy. So it will, you by save a copy in Drive, it will create a copy of this and it will get saved to the Drive. You can go to file, you can go to this revision history and also see the revision history. So if there are two people working, you can see all the revision history, what the single person, each and every person did, like how they edited and stuff. Also, you can run your bash commands using this exclamation point, like this symbol exclamation point. So if you prefix anything, like you want to use different things like download data set from web, use this command. Or you want to install any specific Python library, you have these commands, or run an existing Python script like this. So all these bash commands could also be, you can run using this exclamation point symbol. Other useful hack is that you can mount your Google Drive with your Collab. So if you have some data set or some files which is already in your Drive, you want that file, you want to retrieve that data in your Collab. So you can mount your Drive, you can go to a specific folder of your Drive and access that file, use like this. So this google.collab is a package. So from there you import this Drive function and drive.mount, and here this content slash content slash G drive, this will with this you will be able to access your the files which are present in the Google Drive. You can run it and it will ask you for a permission for like you are, since you are logging in, you're accessing your Drive, it will ask for your permission, and just permit it, and you will you'll see a message like mounted at this location. So last few thing is, once you're like collaborating with other developers and you're like writing code, so a very useful tool is, or you want it to be, I want a session of code review with your colleague or something like that. Something which is very important is commenting on a cell. So you can you can provide a comment where the person wants. So by using this symbol here, so this is a comment symbol, like you can see. So I write that this is a comment, and I'll comment it. So in this way, you can very easily see that this cell has been commented. There's few other things that you can add someone's email address to assign it to someone, etc., with whom it has been shared. Also, lastly, you can see, again, go to tools, and there it is keyboard shortcuts, and you'll find so many keyboard shortcuts. So just you can, see the ones that suits your needs, and then try to, memorize them, and then just practice and use them. Okay, so this was all for the Collab part. Let's go back to our slides. Okay, so just very quickly, let's discuss a few basic differences between the two types of IDEs we used today, the Jupyter and the Collab. So first of all, Jupyter mostly runs on your local hardware. So mostly you will see that it will use your local hardware. Collab, it runs on the Google server. So like you saw that it will allocate. Okay, let's get to the next point where we are stating that. So Jupyter uses your system's RAM and CPU, and sorry, the RAM is written wrong, but it's RAM, CPU, storage, and there's no access to any external GPU or TPU. In Collab, some free GPU or TPU is provided according to your plan. So in Jupyter, you have to install every library manually, any Python library which I'm using. In Collab, most of the required libraries like which we generally use are pre-installed. So like you saw that NumPy, we didn't have to install it, we just imported it. So it was already installed in Collab. In Jupyter, you can't share the code without downloading it. So like we saw that you have to download the code in order to share it with somebody else. In Collab, that is very simple. Like you can, I just showed you, like you can share with anybody, you can comment it and stuff like that. So it is very good for a collaborative experience. Runtime limits depend on your system's memory. So depending upon your memory, your code could run. Like when we are using, few heavy deep learning algorithms or something like that, it uses a lot of, your processing power, and also it runs for a longer period of time. So runtime limits in Jupyter depends on your system's memory, while in Collab, it has some specific runtime. So maximum it could run up to 12 hours, but Google could interrupt it in between, because if you have a free plan, then in order everybody to use the free plan, so these resources which are allocated, they are allocated for some time only. So it may occur that your code is interrupted in between, which is generally not the case, but it may happen. Yeah. And also if the code is like left idle for a longer period of time, then the runtime may just get interrupted. And in Jupyter, you need to install it in your computer through Anaconda or Python, like we discussed earlier. But in the Collab, you need nothing to install in your device itself. So it can be used through browser. In Jupyter, you can't access your notebook files without your hard drive because everything is saved on your machine. In Collab, it is good for virtual access. Like if I forget my laptop and I want to use like my office one or something like that, I can have the same code document access there as well by signing in my account. Also, Jupyter is completely free to use, but Collab is partially free. So you can take a subscription as well if you want the specific resources. But if you are doing, if you are having like education purposes or something like that, and there's no need for a specific GPU or TPU, then the free ones are very sufficient and you need not purchase anything. So which one you should use? So in terms of privacy, if you do a normal work like learning, teaching, etc., then your work does not contain any sensitive information, then Jupyter, you could use Jupyter. Collab is also secure, but not recommended. For highly sensitive works. In terms of portability, if you're okay with non-portability and want to store only in your system's hard drive, then Jupyter is the one you should use. While if you want your files to be accessible from anywhere, then Collab is your friend there. In terms of team, if you're working alone and you don't require any much of the collaboration, then Jupyter, you can use Jupyter. But if you are extensively working with partners, with fellow colleagues, then I think Collab will be like give you more better experience in terms of sharing your document, commenting on it, okay, for code reviews and something like that. In case if you already have a high-end computer setup, then you already have a fast processor, and so Jupyter is your go-to there. If you don't have a high-end processor or a computer setup, then you can use Collab, which provides you with free resources. In terms of reliability, if you're working with something which takes longer execution time and you don't want that by any case it should be interrupted at any time, then you should definitely use Jupyter. But if you are okay with that 12 hours of 24 hours timeline, which I mentioned, like at most it could work, the runtime could be of 12 hours, then you can use Collab if you're okay with that. Okay, in terms of ease of use, if you're okay with installing lots of required files in your system and you're comfortable with that, then use Jupyter. But Collab also provides you with like very many pre-installed libraries, the popular ones. So if you're just a beginner and just want to practice and get a hands-on with Python, then probably you can start with Collab first, and then see what your needs are, and then you can maybe switch to Jupyter. Okay, so with this, I'm done with the material which I prepared for you all for this session.
We do have a few questions actually, so
yeah,
we can.
So this is just a reminder for you all that in the upcoming series that you have session 2 on text editors, which is on 18th of March at 11 p.m. ET at the same time. And session 3 will be on IDEs, so which is expected, which is on 1st of April at 8 p.m. ET. So this is just a reminder, and now we are open for questions.
Yeah. So the first question we got was from Anjali, who asked if you can open IPDB file in Jupyter. So that will be IPython debug file in Jupyter.
Let me just see if I can see what the question is. I really do not understand the question well. Can you repeat it, Jessica, once more?
Yeah, can you use the IPDB file in Jupyter?
You can, the already created IPNB file? Is it that what we're talking about? IPDB, okay. Can IPDB used in Jupyter? So I've never used it like IPDB file. But I don't know, like Jessica, have you come across this kind of file?
I did come across them when using IPython, which what Jupyter is based on, but never as a notebook. So I won't be able to answer.
Okay, yeah. So sorry, Anjali, but we haven't come across this IPDB file as of now. But we can search on the Google to find out that if it is used, and we'll
you might be able to use them though, since
okay.
Jupyter use IPython, and you can use IPython for this debug file. Okay. So I'm sure there's a way to use them.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great, Jessica. Yeah. So yeah.
So the second question we got was from Janice, and she just asked if you can eventually share your Jupyter notebook that you showed.
Jupyter notebook. Yes, I will definitely share. Do you want me to share it right now, or as a link, as a file, like in Slack?
We can probably drop it on Slack later on.
Okay.
So we can move on to the next question, which was from an anonymous. Which environments do companies prefer?
Okay. So I think Jessica, you'll be able to comment on it, because I personally have used for research purposes, so not for companies. So for research, when I was doing machine learning project, I used Colab notebook extensively. So I used like few algorithms, like a few statistical algorithms, few machine learning algorithms like k-means, etc. So I used them in Colab, and which worked very well for me. And for deep learning algorithms, like to create an LSTM model or any CNN models, that for that also I used Colab only. So that really worked well for me. But for companies, I think, Jessica, if you would
It
be
really
able
depends on which domain you're working on. So some companies, if you do, like Poojita mentioned, some data science, and you just like want to present some data, a lot of people use Jupyter or some sort of notebook. Other company, you would just run Python in like Conda or like VR or anything else like that. For some other place, it will be a bit more control. So you may have to run a very specific version of Python with dependency that you can't install yourself. So it really depends on how the company work. And it's very, very dependent on the type of work you're doing. For example, for the type of work I'm doing, we control all the environment and even the version of Python that we use because we have a lot of dependencies.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the reason why we have like divided our sessions also of the series into like three to explain different specific popular say text editors, web-based, and IDEs, so that we can kind of highlight the use cases also with them. So like I highlighted in these two, Jupyter and Colab, that these are majorly preferred for data science projects, because you extensively you immediately want to have the output of a specific algorithm. So let's say it's a clustering algorithm, and in one cell, I wrote the whole algorithm code, right? I want that result just to be immediately beneath it, so that I can check whether my results are good or not, or I want to tweak some parameters here and there. So for that purposes, in data science and machine learning, and especially if you are a beginner or something, people really use they start with these Collab like softwares like Collab and Jupyter Notebook, but it again depends on your use case a lot.
And the last question we got was from Catalina, who asked, which are good resources to learn how to explore IDE, and which one is your favorite to use?
Okay, so we have tried to like add resources as well in the slides, which will be available to you on Slack. So there, and I'll also share a few other resources which I have gone through. Like I came across few of the resources which did a comparative analysis of different kinds of IDs available to us. So there's not like a single good resource on where you can explore these kinds of IDs. But you will have to like surf a lot, like through different blogs and stuff. And also, other than that, you need to have a hands-on on those IDs. Let's say you selected two IDs, you really liked them, okay, and you saw someone using them which has the same use case you are trying to accomplish. So there, again, something that worked for someone else may or may not work for you, right? So you need to have a hands-on on that kind of ID. So take a day or two, kind of try to see what all the features of those are, and if you are comfortable with it. So personally, I have used Python for machine learning purposes, as I explained earlier. So I really liked Collab for that. Especially I was working in team with my colleagues. So we were able to like share our code very easily and try collaboratively work on that code. Similarly, we work on like Google Docs at times when we are when 2-3 people are writing the same document. So it was very easy to use for me, and especially for my machine learning application. So for me, it would be Collab.
And to explain a bit more on that, you just try a few and see which one will stick. And it might change as well. Like for me right now, I'm mostly using VS Code, but I use PyCharm for years, and I use the other one as well. Also, I turn it based on my need and my system. So I do most of my code in VS Code right now, but sometimes when I want to edit something quickly, if I'm on Mac or Linux, I will use Vim. And if I'm on Windows, I will use Notepad++, for example, which are a text editor. And that's why we kind of want to show you a wide range. So based on your need, you might pick one or the other. And you might pick one IDE for a very specific need and another one for another need as well. VS Code have a very good remote execution and remote debugger. PyCharm, I really like it when dealing with virtual environment and a very, very good debugger as well. However, you need to pay for that debugger though.
Yeah, that's right, Jessica. So also like when I was working with like some deep learning algorithms, so because I was using a Mac and it was an older model at that time, so I didn't have my space was almost full, and even the GPU of Mac is not that great, right? So so my mentor suggested me to use Collab, so because it provides some of the free resources. So that way that suited my needs. So similarly, you need to see what you already have in your system, like what's the preference of your system, and then what is your use case. And depending on these two factors, majorly you will decide what is best for you.
That was our last question. I don't think anybody's have any other questions, so maybe we can end the session.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jessica, Stephanie, for the session. I really enjoyed speaking about different types of IDEs and these text editors, so which I really enjoy using as well. So thank you everyone for attending, and also be sure to be at our other sessions in the series, which are going to be extremely interesting. So Jessica will be hosting a next will be the instructor for the next session, and we'll enjoy a lot in her session as well. So be sure to attend the other sessions as well, and always our upcoming events as well. So thank you so much, everyone.
And if you use any IDE and you have any configuration, we encourage you to share it on our Slack channel. Like we all love to see how everybody else is working, and sometimes like, oh, that's very nice. I'm going to integrate whatever plugin you're using or IDE as well. So.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Jessica. Yeah.